everyone. Welcome to Sam's Summaries. This episode is a deep dive discussion into Sam Fury's summary of the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It has been created with the help of AI. You can read the original summary at samfury.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Today, we're all about negotiation. Who doesn't need to brush up on their negotiation skills? So we're looking at this book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That's super interesting. So he was the lead international kidnapping negotiator for the FBI.
That's intense.
Right. Talk about high stakes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the guy clearly knows what he's talking about.
No kidding.
But here's the thing. Obviously, we're not all negotiating hostage situations.
Hopefully not.
But Voss says that these tactics, they can really be applied to any negotiation, whether you're trying to land a job offer or get your roommate to finally do the dishes.
I need that tactic.
We all do. So I'm super excited to kind of dig into this and see what kind of negotiation ninja skills we can unlock. So one of the things that Voss really emphasizes is this idea of tactical empathy.
Tactical empathy. When I first read that, I was kind of like, wait, isn't that like an oxymoron? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. It's not just about being nice. It's about strategically using empathy to actually get what you want.
Like leveraging it to your advantage.
And so one of the key tools that he talks about is, it's called labeling. It's basically about acknowledging the other person's emotions.
Yeah.
Not trying to dismiss them or fix them,
Yeah.
but just saying, hey, I see you're feeling this way.
So validating their feelings.
He says that this can be super powerful because it diffuses tension and builds trust.
Okay. I can see how that would work.
Imagine you're in a salary negotiation and your future boss is like, look, we love your skills, but that salary request is a bit high for this role. That's a tough spot.
So instead of getting defensive or trying to argue with them, you could say something like, I understand that my request might seem high given the typical range for this position.
That's a good point. You're not just ignoring their concern. You're actually addressing it.
And that makes them feel heard. And then it opens the door for a more productive conversation.
You're showing them that you're not just there to demand things, but you're actually trying to understand their perspective too.
Totally. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Voss actually says that we should embrace the power of no. Voss says that no can actually be a really valuable tool. He says that a lot of times when someone says no, they're not actually saying no to the whole thing. They're just saying like, hold on, I need more information, or my needs aren't being met yet.
So it's not a dead end. It's more like a signal.
Instead of hitting a wall and getting discouraged, you can use no as an opportunity to dig deeper and figure out what's really going on.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's say you're trying to convince your family to go on a camping trip, but then your partner's like, no way, I hate bugs. Instead of launching into this whole sales pitch about the joys of nature, you could say something like, it sounds like you're concerned about bugs.
Oh, that's smart, because then they feel like you're actually listening.
And then they might elaborate and be like, I'm really worried about getting bitten by mosquitoes or whatever. And then you can address that specific concern. Maybe you suggest renting a cabin instead of sleeping in a tent.
Yeah, problem solved.
So you're turning that no into an opportunity to find a solution that works for everyone.
I like that.
Okay, so another tool that Voss talks about is using these things called calibrated questions.
Calibrated questions. What are those?
So they're basically open-ended questions that start with how or what. He says that these are way more effective than asking closed-ended questions that can just be answered with a yes or no.
I could see that.
Instead of saying, can you give me a discount, which can easily be met with a no, you could say something like, how can we make this work within my budget?
So you're putting the ball in their court.
And it kind of forces them to get creative and come up with solutions.
Because they can't just say no. They have to actually engage with the question.
And it makes them feel more invested in the outcome, too.
That's clever.
So Voss says that using calibrated questions can really help to shift the conversation from a confrontation to more of a collaboration. Okay, so this reminds me of another point that Voss makes, which is that we should be aiming for, that's right, instead of just a yes.
Well, wait, so what's the difference?
Well, he says that a lot of times people will say yes just to shut down the conversation.
Just to get you to stop talking.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that they actually agree with you or that they're fully on board.
I've definitely experienced that.
But when someone says, that's right, it means that they really understand what you're saying and they're in agreement.
So it's a deeper level of buy-in.
Imagine you're negotiating a new project with a colleague and they say yes to your proposal, but they seem kind of hesitant. So instead of just moving on, you could say something like, it seems like you have some reservations about the timeline. Is that right?
That's good, because it gives them permission to voice their concerns.
Then you can work together to find solutions.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Now for the part that really blew my mind.
Okay, hit me with it.
Black swans.
Black swans, what are those?
So Voss says that black swans are basically the unknown unknowns, the hidden pieces of information that can completely change the game.
I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, so imagine you're about to close a deal on a new apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And you think everything's all settled. But then the landlord casually mentions that the building is going to be undergoing major renovations for the next year.
Talk about a curveball.
Right. So that's a black swan. It's something that you had no idea existed, and now it's totally changed your perception of the deal.
That would definitely be a deal breaker for me.
How do we uncover these black swans? Because it feels like searching for a needle in a haystack.
For sure.
Well, Voss says that it all comes back to tactical empathy. The more you understand the other person, their values, their motivations, their fears, the more likely you are to kind of spot clues.
I see. So it's about really paying attention and picking up on those subtle cues.
Okay, so we've uncovered a lot of really cool negotiation tactics here, but let's get practical. How can our listeners actually apply these techniques in their everyday lives?
Well, I think the first thing is to just become a more active listener. Really pay attention to what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Like reading between the lines.
Exactly. And then ask open-ended questions to encourage them to share their perspective.
Those calibrated questions.
Yes, and most importantly, acknowledge their emotions. Make them feel heard and understood.
That seems to be a recurring theme here.
It is, because at the end of the day, good communication and good negotiation, it all boils down to connection.
I love that.
And remember, these principles, they don't just apply to high-stakes business deals. They can be used in all sorts of situations, like resolving conflicts with loved ones, advocating for yourself at work, even deciding where to go for dinner.
So true. I mean, we're negotiating all the time, whether we realize it or not.
I think Voss's book really drives home the point that negotiation, it's a skill that we can all develop. It's not about manipulation, it's about understanding and connection.
Well said. Okay, so before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think a good question to ask yourself is what situation in your life could benefit from a more empathetic, collaborative approach? I challenge you to try out some of these techniques and see the difference it makes. You might be surprised at the results.
Awesome advice. All right, everybody, that's it for today's deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Sam's Summaries. If you found this episode useful, let us know with a like, follow, and share. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to visit samfury.com to get free access to all of Sam's original summaries. You can also get any of Sam's books and other exclusive content. It's all completely free at samfury.com.